Welcome to Shooting the Shift with Marilyn and Elizabeth. These light warriors, both native New Yorkers, walk their walk, talk their talk, and keep the real in the deal. This dynamic duo joined forces to assist you through your transformational journey one step at a time, empowering you with spiritual tools you can use in your daily life. Each show begins as a conversation creating an opening for spiritual connection. There are never any scripts, and Spirit is always illuminating the way. And that's when the shift hits the fan. The magical messages of the ancestors, spirit guides, and Gaia are respected, honored, and always given sacred space to communicate. Join Marilyn and Elizabeth as they shake shift up and do what they do best, speak from their hearts.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are out there in the world. In the U.S. today, it's the day before Thanksgiving, and I am here with my co-pilot and soul sister, Miss Marilyn.
Welcome,
good morning.
everyone. Yeah, good morning.
Yes.
It's an amazing day.
How you doing? Are you
I'm
ready?
doing really good. Yeah, I just, I had such, I was thinking about this topic, and then I kept saying, oh, I can't think of too many things. And all I can think about is that Rainbow Crow story. And then I'm thinking, oh my God, all of a sudden I started like so much information just kept coming in. And I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. So yeah, I think this is a really interesting topic because a lot of times we don't even realize that there are these signs, and information that comes in and we are not even aware of it. And so, like I was saying earlier this morning to you, I'm going to bring up a story about, I was questioning the work, my work. And I was asking Spirit if I should continue on this journey. And I had said, if I am to continue on this journey, then I want to be presented with some earrings. Because I figured, who's going to give me earrings out of the blue? So anyway, very next day, I go to work. My boss comes in to my, to where I'm sitting, and she opens the palm of her hands, and she has 2 sets of earrings. And she shows it to me, and she says, would you like these? And I looked at them, and I have forgotten, that the day before I had asked Spirit to present me with earrings, because that's what I do. I forget sometimes. And so as she said that to me, they were really beautiful. I really loved them, but I knew I wouldn't wear them. So I said, oh no, but thank you so much. And then, I went on my merry way and continued to work. And the very next day, of course, Marilyn says, why haven't I received an answer yet? And in that same instant, when I was asking the question, I got that, oh my God, Marilyn, you were presented the earrings. You weren't focused. You weren't paying attention. So this was really important for me, because thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, sometimes we get the messages, even we ask for, and we receive them, and yet we don't acknowledge them, or we're not aware of them. So in that very moment, I got all of that information, that sometimes, we have to really be more mindful and aware, right, of what we're being presented with. So yeah, I thought that was just a minute. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so today we're talking about signs and symbols and how Spirit is talking to us. Spirit doesn't have a giant bullhorn where they go, hey, Marilyn, I got a tip for you. Here it is. It doesn't work that way. For me, my journey is very different than most of the people I work with today that are mediums, and I call myself a spiritual pizza pie. But I remember once, right before I was getting married to my first husband, I was laying in bed, and I know we were late. The alarm hadn't gone off, and I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "We got to get up. We're late. It's 6:34." And he goes, "How the hell do you know it's 6:34?" I said, "Well, I saw it in red letters." And I had not been in the bathroom. I'd not seen his clock. And he got up and he held the clock around the room with the cord, and it said 6:34 in red letters. You would have think then I would have known that I could
Yeah.
astral travel and see stuff, but of course I didn't. I had a near-death experience and a big, journey with my health, and what happened from that was all of these signs started coming in, and it's not that signs hadn't come in earlier; they did. I realize now, looking back, but ironically, when I got through the first half of that journey, I went bankrupt professionally with my artist-owned business. I got to keep my business because I didn't, it was my livelihood, and I didn't have enough for them to come after, and I needed to be employed after 20 years. So I thought, well, I got the debt off me, I'm feeling better, and I can keep making jewelry, even though tools are flying out of my hand, things aren't working the way they used to, and bam, I had another big wake up call. And when I was recovering, my guardian angel came in, signs started coming in, everything opened up for me. And Marilyn, you know me well enough to say I joke. I was a tough nut to crack, so they had to jackhammer me open, not once, but twice. So then I shut up and listened, because when you shut up and listen and you really are aware, it gets a lot easier. But I like to share that very brief description of that journey, because I shut down for my 5-year-old and my gifts at the age of 5. She kept those secrets for me, and then I was reacquainted so many years later. But in a million years, I never saw. And I know we're going to talk about crows today, and there's a significant reason why for me. And I'll go into that because I know you're going to share the crow rainbow story, which I had never heard of until you told me about it. But I had a synchronicity with a crow 5 years before I knew the crows were talking to me. I just didn't know then, right? And I call them spiritual breadcrumbs. And we all have them. I don't know about you, but like since I was about 12 years old, I always knew my number was 44. And this is before angel numbers or numbers being big and all that stuff. I just knew that was my number. And can I tell you, I now have like 3 people, including Melissa Caprio, who has a show on OMTimes, who's like a friend. I have people see 444 all the time now when they're
Mhm.
talking to me, and it's like I'm spreading the love of the signage. I don't know, but I just think it's a really intriguing conversation, and I know for me, I've been bombarded by signs until I would get it, because
Yeah.
I'll be the first one to
Yeah.
tell you I'm a tough nut to crack. I get
Yeah, it's
really
hard
distracted.
sometimes, right? It's very
Yeah.
hard sometimes. Even, like you can get all different kinds of signs and signals and information. And if you're not tuned in, if you're not really aware, right, then the messages, they just all kind of like, they're there, but they get past you. And maybe later on you start to make, connect the dots, right? Because I
Mhm.
can say I can say that, there was a lot of things that when I was very young that I kind of like intuitively knew and didn't understand how I knew these things. And even still today, people will say to me, "How do you know that? What were you in my head?" And listen, I'm not a mind
Yes.
reader. I don't
Yes.
know how to read people's heads, but I do know how to, make the connection. And so that's
Synchronicity. The
yes.
synchronicity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's so important, right? Because we have to remember that sometimes, you could be walking and all of a sudden, you could be thinking of someone who has passed, and you may see a feather on the path. I have found feathers, in parking lots, in in the sidewalks, in the roads, so it's just so interesting. I expect to find them, mostly in the parks and things like that, but when I come across them in places where it's like, wow, I didn't expect this, and usually it's because I'm thinking of someone, who has passed, and it's almost like, we're still here, we still got
Yes.
you. It's
It's
all
a
good,
reminder.
right?
Yep.
Yeah, and that's how
Yep.
I look at it. I also
Mhm.
want to talk about this other time when, and I'll do this quickly too. Another time when I had gone to Puerto Rico to visit my grandmother because this was in the year 2009 and she was diagnosed with leukemia and everybody was telling me that, she was not going to make it. And I was like, I'm not listening to that. I'm getting on a plane and I'm going. And I went to visit her and I did, laying of hands, I did my beautiful work and she loved it and I wanted to tell her what it was, but I was really afraid to because I didn't know how she was going to how to interpret it. And it was so beautiful. That was such an amazing day because she did say to me, oh my God, I loved how that felt. I could
Aw.
feel the love. And then she said, and then I said, I said to her, I was explaining to her what it was. So I really felt like I was confessing to her of the work that I was doing. And I called it almost like a confession, because I didn't know how she was going to react to it. And my grandmother, as I'm giving her this story, I'm telling her what it is that I do and how it is that she says she is also telling me that this is, from the ancestors. This is from our ancestors. And this is, that I was given this gift. And in that very moment when the two of us were speaking, a penny fell. Now, mind you, I was indoors. It was in her bedroom. She was laying in her bed, and a penny fell from above. I looked up because I could hear the sound of it landing on her dresser, and I was like, what just happened? What happened? What was that? So I got startled, and when I looked, it was a penny. And when I had spoken to this beautiful sacred medicine woman who is also a very sacred sister of mine, and she had said to me, the penny says, "In God we trust."
Yeah,
And
wow.
I said, oh my God, because I'm getting chills right now just talking about it because I just couldn't understand how something so solid
Mhm.
could fall from above. There was nothing above us. There was nothing above us. That we could see, right? There's nothing above
Yeah.
us. No shelves, no nothing. It was just the ceiling. And that penny just came down.
I
And
just
I
love
just
that.
felt, and, we were just like in awe of it, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, so I wanted to share that because I thought of her today in that when I was
Aw.
doing all of this. And I was like, yeah, I remember that moment, Ma. I
Well,
remember.
I'm going to go
Yeah.
even further and say, you were flooded with all these ideas. I have a feeling, these memories of all these signs. I have a feeling when you were thinking about her, she was bringing them all back to you. And
Oh,
that energy,
yeah.
yeah. So she
I
was right
even
there with
I
you.
even cried this morning because I was in
Yeah.
such an emotional, like all of
Mhm.
the information that was coming through, it was like, do you remember
Mhm.
this? And do you remember that?
Mhm.
And how about this? And what about that moment? And it was
Mhm.
like, yeah, I forget, but I felt so
Mhm.
emotional. I feel emotional now too because it
Because it's
feels
the
like,
connection. It's the connection.
yeah.
It's the energy of knowing it's her. And I want to share something too because back when I had my store, I had designed a pendant called Marycleves in honor of my mother and my two aunts that had all had breast cancer and passed on. And every penny went to the breast cancer fund. It was a labor of love. And I had it in one case in my store, and it was for sale. And it was very special. I had made it myself. It was a goddess. And whenever I would take that pendant out of the case and start talking about the breast cancer fund and my mother and my aunt's journeys when people came in to buy it, the case lights would go crazy. They'd start flickering, and one in them, there were three lights above a jewelry case, and one in the middle would keep going out. Can I tell you, every time, to the point that this is before I was ever a medium, and to the point that I would say to people, my mother wants to go back in the case. She wants to make sure her pendant goes back in the case in her special spot. I had twice electricians come, rewire that case, fix that light, and to the day I exited out of that store, anytime that pendant came out and she was talked about, those lights would flicker and then go out. And I didn't know at the time that I had that ability. I just knew it was her. And
Yeah.
I that was back before I call the wake up.
Yeah.
But thinking about it, you are flooded with those emotions, because what
Yeah.
happens is, you know, anybody can speak to someone that's crossed over. Anybody. And
Yes.
when you
Yes.
do and you think of them and you have that love in your heart, that calls them in. And
Yeah.
spirit speaks to us through our imagination. And when you're so blended, like my mother was my rock, I was so blended, I know her better than anybody. So
Mm-hmm.
when she's talking in my head, I think it's me talking in my head, because I'm so blended with her, I don't really even feel the difference. Now, with
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
people I work with, when I bring in their family, their mother, their loved one, I can feel the difference. So that took me a long time to get, like, that the energy merges there. But
Yeah.
also
It's that
just the
connection,
thought
right?
away.
Yeah. It's
Yep,
that connection
just
that
the
you
thought
have.
and a feeling away. Um,
Yeah.
so we have lots of signs and synchronicities we want to share with you, but most importantly, I feel like a little kid because it's like storytelling time, because
Yes.
Marilyn is going to tell us about the rainbow crow, and I have to share my crow stories after you share your story.
Right.
But I'm
Right.
just so excited. So
Yeah.
we are
And
going
think
to
of,
head off to our first break.
yes.
We're going to head off to our first break, and we're going to come right back. And if you're making the gravy or the turkey or whatever, we're here with you and thank you.
There you go. That's right. We'll be right back.
Bringing a more conscious lifestyle to your world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Hey, that's okay.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your
Yeah,
show with
I get
OMTimes
emotional when I
Radio
speak
Network.
about, especially my grandma.
My
You know?
name is Victor Furman. Some
I
call
mean, we
me
were
the voice.
so
I've
far
always
away
been
from each
fascinated
other, but
with
we were
human
so
nature,
close all the time. Like
spirituality,
I knew
science,
what was going
and the
on with her, and she
crossroads
knew
at
what was
which
going
they
on
meet.
with me. So it's that
Join
kind of
me
like,
Wednesdays at 8 p.m.
I'm
Eastern
good.
on OMTimes
Yeah,
Radio,
it's a
and
good
we'll explore these
emotional,
topics
right,
and so much
charge.
more on Destination Unlimited.
Okay.
Good?
All right.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human, and she's got this little toy she's always playing with all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop.
Listen,
She can't put it down.
listen.
There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Welcome back to Shooting the Shift.
Welcome back.
So,
So-
my dear Marilyn, you're going to share a story with us
Yes.
about the rainbow crow.
Yes. And how
Which I'm
how
really intrigued about. Yeah.
right, and how I received that story, right? Because
Yes.
it all started with a dream that I was having, and it felt like I was in like ancient times in this dream. And there were many sacred ones that had gathered, and there was a lot of information that was being shared. You know, I could feel the love. It was enormous. I mean, it was a beautiful sacred place that I was in. And a crow came forward and rolled out a scroll. And the crow told me that they have a language. And so at first, I couldn't read the symbols and the signs. But after a few seconds, I was able to understand the language. And of course, this is still in my dream. And I was told that the information was already a part of me. And the crow kept repeating, "Remember Rainbow Crow, remember Rainbow Crow." And it was a very powerful dream. And as the crow kept continued to repeat, "Remember Rainbow Crow," I was in between the sleep and the awakened state, and I kind of like was hearing like the cowing of the crows. And it was so loud that I woke up from my sleep. And when I got up out of bed and went to the window and I looked out, there were hundreds and hundreds of crows flying and perching upon the tree that was outside the window. And I was really startled because remember, I was dreaming with the crow who had just showed me, the language of the crow. And I was amazed by the experience and the connection of the dream and, what I was actually seeing and hearing, in the physical now in that moment. And the crows just kept coming. And after a few minutes, I decided, oh my goodness, I don't understand any of this. So I'm going to go downstairs and make myself a cup of coffee. And I'll come upstairs. And my husband witnessed this as well. And so I just kept seeing the crows. And while I'm making the coffee, I just keep hearing in my head, remember Rainbow Crow, remember Rainbow Crow. And I couldn't when things like this happen to me where I keep hearing something, I have to move in the direction of it so that it can stop. So I went to the computer and I started looking it up and I said, I would never put those two words together ever. Rainbow Crow? Never. I would never think that. And so, when I looked at it, when I looked it up in the internet, there was a powerful story of the Rainbow Crow. And I also am familiar that the crows are the keepers of the sacred laws, the power of the unknown at work, right? And so this story is a beautiful story about, I condensed the story a little bit, so I'm going to just say it so that you'll get an understanding. So it's after a long period of cold weather, the animals of the community became worried. They decided to send a messenger to the great sky spirit to ask for relief because cold weather and snow was coming. The rainbow crow, the most beautiful of all birds with shimmering feathers of rainbow hues and an enchanted singing voice, offers to make the journey. He travels safely and is rewarded by the Great Spirit with the gift of fire. He carries the gift in his beak back to his people, but upon his return, he does not appear to be the same bird that he once was. The fire has scorched his plumage black, with only hints of his previous color, and his voice has been made rough and hoarse by the smoke. There was great celebration, but Crow was saddened for his loss. And so the Creator heard his cry, and he came down and said, "Do not be sad, Rainbow Crow. All animals will honor you for the sacrifice you made for them. And when the people come, they will not hunt you, for I have made your flesh taste of smoke, so that it is no good to eat, and your black feathers and hoarse voice will prevent man from putting you into a cage to sing for him. You will be free." Then the Creator pointed to the Rainbow Crow's black feathers. Before his eyes, Rainbow Crow saw the dull feathers become shiny, and inside each one he could see all the colors of the rainbow. This will remind everyone who sees you of the service you have been to your people, said the Creator, and the sacrifice you made that saved them all. And so shall it ever be. So this is such a beautiful story because it was about how the animals were freezing. They weren't familiar with this cold weather and they weren't, surviving. And so somebody had to go and speak to the Creator to see how they were going to get the weather to change back to where it was. And, the Creator said, I can't because the wind and the cold and the ice and the snow has a spirit. So he couldn't stop that, but he could make fire to help the animals to stay warm on the planet. And so I thought, my God, I thought that was such a beautiful story. And even when I read it, I was like, I mean, I cried because it hit me in such a way, right? Because I felt, oh my goodness, first, I would have never put those two words together. And second, that I would have such a dream and then have it presented in such a physical way that, and yet even then I was still like, I was still not 100% sure, right, of
Right.
myself and my work, right, which is so interesting. But it's because I know that part of it had to do with, fear is a big factor, right? Sometimes we're afraid, and we don't even know why we're afraid of how somebody's going to see you, or how somebody's going to, think of who are you? What are you? What are you doing?
Well, what are you right there? I mean, not
Yeah.
only, that story reminds me of the Phoenix Rising and
Mm-hmm.
the great transformation of awakening, which is what that
Yeah.
crow literally became something else from
Yes.
the
Yes.
little worm to the cocoon to the butterfly. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a beautiful story, and obviously, Spirit was guiding you to know that story that already existed. And this
Yes.
is the thing, like so many, I mean, we could go on and on about this, but there's so many times in my life where you cannot deny the message because it was so in your face obvious. I mean, and then for you to go and, like, okay, so when I was waking up and I was recovering from the end of my journey from my last surgery, and I was in a deep trance, and I had this beautiful, beautiful, huge, like 20-foot angel come in. I kid you not, I cannot make this up, like a Barbie doll hair, that blonde hair, and an Amazon woman, and she was holding something, and I thought it was a sword, I wasn't sure, and she told me her name was Corinne, and my tears rolling down my face. It was so beautiful. I felt so supported. And when I got out of the trance and I came back to my senses, I went and Googled Corinne. And it
Mm.
literally translated to the Gaelic word for spear bearer.
Mm.
Okay. So, I mean, I didn't make that up, you
Yeah.
know, and it
Yeah.
was so powerful. And, I've done a lot of work with her ever since, of course, but it's quite extraordinary. And some of it can be quite frightening. But when you go back to that part about what are we afraid of, many, 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 many of us have been drawn, quartered, stoned,
Mm-hmm.
drowned, you name
Yeah.
it, for being
Yeah.
magical beings.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the
The
first time
fear
in our
of
history.
persecution, right?
Yes, or your own
Yeah.
life, your own
Yeah.
ability to survive.
Yeah.
And so, um, yeah, I wanted to say another thing that happened to me in trance that was so amazing that I never saw coming was my great great grandmother came in, and I could see her hands, and she was rubbing on this black taffeta, and she wore black the rest of her life. When she was a widow, she had three young boys, and because of her we all survived. I mean, she's a badass. But she came in trance and she said, I'm the one who sends the crows. Now, listen, I've never
Mm.
been a crow girl in my whole life
Mm-hmm.
until 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that day when I came out of it, I was like, it was so beautiful. And I said, I'm going to make an altar for my ancestors. And I made an altar. And I just started it. In fact, I have the $2 you sent me in my altar because of your generosity for prosperity. Anyway, um, went on a walk, and right at my feet when I left my house was a big, giant, really long crow feather. And I knew she had given me something for the altar. And
Yes.
that could make me cry right now. And
Yeah.
it's not important to go into, but 5 years prior, I woke up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. Carl, Carl, Carl. And it was a very hard time for me. It was the dark night of the soul. And I knew that was a wake up call. But I didn't know until 5 years later. And then after that, I had crows on t shirts on TV. I had crows, thousands of them in my yard. I mean,
Yeah.
crow, 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 crow,
Yeah.
crow, crow. For like 2 weeks nonstop, they bombarded me. And I will never, like, I even had Melissa on it. Every time I had a sign, I texted her because I wanted a witness. Now I'm not like that anymore. But it's that excitement and awe that you can't even believe that it's happening, but you know it is, and you can't deny.
Yes, and you know it is. It's just that what happens is that, of course, you have sometimes those doubts that come in. Why? Because they've been living with us for so long. You know, that critic inside, right? That always wants to make sure that it's accurate, right? And that what we're feeling and what we're seeing is accurate, right? So yeah, even music, right? For me, music is something that I can share another one where I remember because this came to me today too. I was like, oh my God, okay. I was going on a sacred trip to Puerto Rico, and I don't remember the year. I don't remember what year it was, but I remember that I was debating whether I should go or not go. And then I remember really wanting to go, but just feeling hesitant about it. And then all of a sudden, I go to the pizza place with my husband, and I stay in the car, and he goes out. And then I realized, oh, wait a minute. I don't think he has cash, and I didn't want him to use a credit card for pizza. So I got out of the car, and as I'm, trying to get him, there's a group of young kids there, and they said out loud, Christina's in Puerto Rico. That's my daughter's name. And I said, what? And then, and all of a sudden, it wasn't important that I go to give the money to my husband. All of a sudden, that's the message. I need to go on this trip. I need to go on this sacred trip. This trip is important. And I did. And I'm so glad that I did, because it was amazing. It was such an amazing experience for me. I mean, I got to do ceremony. Yeah. And I got to do ceremony on sacred grounds of the Taino people. I mean, I got a chance to sit with such amazing people, and I'll never forget that. And how I could, the earth, I was so connected to the earth that I could hear it and feel it, and it was it was such an amazing experience that I can, as I'm speaking to you, I can really, I'm in it. I'm in that
I have
energy
chills
of it.
all over me while
Yeah.
you're talking. Yeah.
And I've been to Puerto Rico before that time, but this time, the moment I got off the plane, I put my feet on the ground. It was almost like I had such a welcoming of the earth. And then when we were traveling to where we were going to stay, it was like we entered a portal. Like we entered a portal through the mountains and the forest there. It was just amazing. So what I say is, we need to remember to trust ourselves. I've been working on that word with capital letters, trust, because I know that I need to, to do this beautiful sacred work. And I know that I need to have trust in fully trusting what I'm doing and fully trusting my connection with spirit. Yeah.
Yeah, and only you know your signs. Everyone's signs are
Yeah.
different. It's not about like, oh, this happened, that happened. This happened. It's about knowing and following it, because you know what? As soon as you did that, you opened up that portal.
Yeah,
That's
and
what you
one
did.
more thing about the trip, it was my phone turned on, and I don't usually have my phone turned on to anything. But
know
my
that's
my phone turned on to a song, right? That was well, I'm trying to remember. I'm trying to remember, like, even the lyrics. It was like, a whole new world. I forget how it goes.
Beautiful. It's beautiful.
A
but
new
you knew that was
fantastic
for you.
point of view. Yeah. And this was what was it? It was from the Aladdin movie. It was I can't remember the name of that song
That's
for some
okay.
reason. Yeah, but that song was a magic carpet ride. The words were, it's a magic carpet ride. Come fly with me. Come fly with me. And I was like, I'm flying to Puerto Rico. And this was
And
in the
you
same
did.
timing. And it was the same timing. So it was like, I don't know. I was so even when I came back, I was like still in that state of
Mm-hmm.
just like I just go like this. I don't do drugs, but my drug is my
Mm-hmm.
work because I feel so high sometimes, this
Mm-hmm.
this feeling of being, so in such a different energy that yeah, it's just amazing.
In the
Yeah.
awe, in the magic, and all.
Mhm.
You just made me think of when my mom passed. She passed on Christmas Day, late at night, and it didn't ruin our Christmas, but she passed very late. And my husband and I were returning something the next day that we had to go, and we were sitting in a restaurant, and all of a sudden, Hurricane Smith's song came on, and it was "Oh babe, what would you say?" And I mean, nobody plays that song on the radio. I mean, it's not on the radio. It's like from 30 years ago. It wasn't even a hit. And my husband, who is a complete muggle, went, "That's your mom. That's your mom. She's telling you she's okay." And it was so obvious that even he got it, you know? And I
Yeah.
remember that. And I remember sitting there, just in shock, of course, because she just passed. But even then, she got a message to me. And, I just think it's so miraculous when we really just allow ourselves to believe in the
Mhm.
unbelievable. And that's really the
Yeah.
point of this show is you know what you know in your heart, in the
Yes.
resonancy of your heart, and that's the place where you stay. And that's the place where when the more you believe in that, that's really the point. When we say following the spiritual breadcrumbs, it's like the more you believe in that and the more you allow yourself to process that everything in the world that says isn't true is
Yes.
true, the more it opens up. And that's what happened. I mean, now there's so many things that happen to me on such a incredible basis that I just go, thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
It's just a
Yes.
thank you. So,
Yes.
wow, Kim Marilyn, can you believe we're like at our second break already? Um,
Yeah.
so we are going to come back for the last segment and just share a little more about being in that magic and the wonderment and how you can open that up for yourself and recognize it. And
Yeah.
when we come back, and we're going to have a good time like what I was doing this morning.
There you go.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free.
Oh, yeah.
AscendingHearts.com.
Or it's not happy what?
Imagine yourself being transported
indigenous?
to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested.
We can just
Join
say-
Sattvi Bhagawati
Yeah, we can just
Saraswati
say happy-
for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at
know.
11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Yeah, let's say Thanksgiving.
Coping 19, brought to
It
you
doesn't
by
really
CDC and the Ad Council.
With everything going on, there may be times you feel like you can't handle it all. Journaling, meditating, and talking with friends and family can help you feel more grounded and better able to cope. Your kids are also going through a lot of new experiences, and simply talking with them about their feelings can be quite powerful.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Welcome back to Shooting the Shift with Marilyn and Elizabeth. And I did want to share one last little story about signs just because it still blows my mind even now. I've documented it in my journal with a photograph because when I feel like I'm not connecting or I don't know what to do or maybe I'm a little bit more alone or just I'm a little pity pat wondering what's going on, I look at this and it's so uplifting. So I have to say, I have this beautiful perfume that was made in very small batches called Antonio's Flowers. And it is the only scent that brings me to my mother. It is a very specific fragrance. The woman who created it started it in East Hampton. They used to sell it at Barney's. It wasn't extremely expensive, but it was very rare. She made it for many, many years. It was the only fragrance my mother loved. And I would spray that on and I would smell her and it would just bring me back, right? It wasn't my fragrance, it was hers, but the
Yeah.
memory. And then she stopped making it. She said, "Listen, I can't keep going. I'm going to if I ever make it again, you're on my list." But it really broke my heart. Well, the very next day, I'm watching TV. I turn on the TV, something with my husband because I don't really watch a lot of TV. And there was a commercial for LinkedIn. And and on this commercial, that's this big, huge football playing looking dude. And he's like, talking about LinkedIn. And then they show the caption at the end. And this gentleman's name was Antonio Flowers.
Aw.
And I was like, oh my God, because have you ever met a man named Antonio Flowers or a man named Flowers, period? It was so bizarre. I took a snapshot of the screen and I just remember that because it's so random. It's not my 4-4, it's not a crow, but it was so I knew in my heart immediately you were never going to tell me different till the day I die. You're never going to talk me out of it. And that's when you know that you're
Yeah.
in your,
Yes.
that was
Yes.
my point of saying that
Yeah.
because everybody, and people will say, oh, what makes you think you're so special that you get fours? You know what? It doesn't make me more special. That's just my son. Your son could
Yes.
be
Yes.
whirly birds or spinning tops. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not going to judge you, but I just think it's important that we know that you're not nuts. And
Right.
these
That's so
things are
important.
showing up. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the more
And I
you
think
have
that
like-minded people, yeah, go ahead.
And I think that in these times, right, that we need to be a little bit more aware, right, and tuned in. Because there's a difference in the energies. I'm not sure if everybody's feeling it, but I
Yep.
definitely am. I have to say, I'm confessing, I definitely am feeling a lot of the energies
Big
that are
time.
swirling, and I'm feeling
Yep.
them big time, and they're shaking stuff up, and they're just helping me, right? Helping me to just release and let go and purge and just keep moving, right? Because this is it. This is a beautiful time for us to be able to do the check-in, right? Let's check in with ourselves, right? Let's check in to recognize what it is that we are really saying to ourselves, right? Let's start looking for the signs. Let's start looking for them. What I did when I asked for the earrings. Everybody could do that. Like ask a question and then wait for the answer. I mean, I asked for
Oh
earrings
my
because I
gosh.
knew that it was going to be so different, right? And who's going to hand you earrings? Like really, seriously. Like maybe you can find a penny on the road or a dime, but who's going to walk up to you and give you earrings, right? So you think about
Yes.
that. Think
And
about those things.
I have a friend, JJP. I'll just use her initials, JJP. But she used to tell me, you tell them what you want, you insist that you get it. And I used to think, wow, that's awfully demanding, like shaking your finger at God, going, you better show me something. I always thought that was a little brassing. But now I realize, you got to be in it to win it, right? So
Well,
if
you
your
have to
heart's in
ask,
it,
right? But you have
yes.
to ask, right? Because if
Well,
you
you got to
don't
be in it to win it.
ask for it, how are you going to receive it? It's important to ask for things sometimes,
Right, and what my light bulb moment around that was, wow, that's a little bit of my worthiness coming up there. My little why me? Why
Yeah.
would they talk to me? Why, and I had a real light bulb moment around that yes, you have to be willing to ask and you also have to be willing to know that
and
you're
to receive
worthy.
it. And to
To get
receive
it.
it.
Exactly.
Because if
That's
you don't
the
receive it, what does it matter? If you ask for it,
right.
but you don't receive it, then it really doesn't, it's null and void, right? It's just
Yeah,
null
you
and
were
void.
just 5 minutes ahead of me on that description. That's all that happened there. Yeah, because we
Yeah,
know each other so well. But
I
the
know.
but the truth of the matter is, the one thing I'd like to get out there for people, like that someone who's listening maybe today is going, well, I don't really get signs, or I wish I would get signs, or, why doesn't that happen to me? It is happening to you.
It
That's all
is.
what I'm going to say. It is
Yes.
happening to you. And, it is recognizing it. But also, you know what? It comes when it's ready. And so just be open to it. Have an
Right.
open mind to it.
Right.
That
But
because
the
anybody's feeling like it won't happen, it will. That's my
right.
point.
And the other thing is that if you ask for, if you don't ask, or you say, well, I never get signs, I never hear anything, I never see anything, I never this, I never that. Well, you're right. You may
Yes,
not, because you're
exactly.
not open to it, right? and
Yeah.
and you we don't want to also be pushy, because we may not be able to see it, because it's almost like, I'll give you an example. Like when I say, wow, I'm running so fast, I'm so ahead of myself, that I may run myself over in the process, right? So we have to slow down sometimes. We have to be able to be in the energy of the asking and the receiving, and being open to knowing that it may come in a different form, right? Because I was seeing my earrings, I was seeing them as, I don't even know. It was like presented to me, but given to me, not so that I was choosing, right? Choosing something. So I never made that connection in my brain until I asked the question. And then it was like, listen, didn't I give you the earrings?
Really, exactly. What do you
Did I give
want?
them
What
to
do you
you?
want?
What else do
Yeah,
you want?
yeah, and I've
So,
done that
yeah.
too, where like all of a sudden I'm stumbling over my own feet and realizing, like one time I had a medium say SNL, SNL, and I'm like, I don't know, and then like 5 weeks later, I'm like, oh my God, Stephen Laurie, SNL, like
Mm,
sometimes we've got to get that click where we, like you said, be a little more present, be a little more
yeah.
slow. One time when my aunt was passing, and we knew she was passing, and she was around lovely people who loved her and supported and guided, but she came to me in a dream with my mom in black and white, and I knew I needed to get on that plane and go see her in Nashville, and it was the last time I would see her, and it's the
Mm,
same thing, and I went, and I was so grateful, but a couple of months later, I knew she was getting ready to go. And I went to my dresser where I have a picture of my mother and my Aunt Adelaide. And the picture just jumped off the little stand and went flat on the dresser. And
mm.
I said, okay, you got your sister. And that was
Yeah.
it. They were like,
Yeah.
we're too busy. We don't have time to talk to you, but I got her and we're good. And that
Yeah.
was
And it's so right, and that's so important, because you're saying all of that, and at the same time I'm coming in with the oh yeah, it's like my grandma at in the year 2009, when I went to visit her, when I went to work on her, when the penny fell from from the sky, I mean,
it.
from above, and I was thinking it was 2009. And everybody said she doesn't have, even her doctors, she doesn't have a long, my grandmother lived to 2018. So
Wow.
she lived
Yeah.
9 more years. She lived 9 more years. I refuse to believe, I just refuse to believe that, And so,
Hmm.
it's so interesting, when we think about it, it's, what is it? Like, what is it that's happening, when we're making certain connections, right? When we are, because 9 years, we're talking 9 years of a difference,
Yeah, but
right?
also,
Of,
it says a lot because I'm getting, she's coming in and talking to me, I think, because what I'm getting really strong is, she had a lot to stick around for. She
yeah,
wanted to stick around for a lot, for the
yeah,
love, for the
yeah,
people that were in her life. And so, somebody who didn't want to stick around in that shape, they don't stick around.
yeah.
And you were so worried about what she was going to think of you when you told her these things, and of course she was right there with open arms, not only
Oh,
embracing it but going, this is who you are.
Yeah.
This is who you
And
are.
and I cried and I cried and I cried because I felt like, yes, yes, I am. And that's when I really, truly, believe that, that, yeah, the medicine does live in me. I am the
Yeah.
medicine. It does live
You
in me.
are the
And it felt good.
medicine. And
Yeah.
what an, you know, that's how I feel about my great great grandmother. It was like, oh my gosh, if that can transcend all time, and she went through what she went through to pave the way for me
Yes.
in the middle
Yes.
of like shitty times,
Yes.
in the middle of three young boys, a widow, no prospects, her apartment building burnt down. She ended up being the postmistress of the whole damn town. The tenacity in her was incredible. And I think if I have an ounce of that in me,
Power
it's
filled women.
my, I mean, not only is it such an extraordinary awe, and I feel so honored, but it's like, okay, what is my part? How do I show up? How do I honor that?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
it's so
To
deep.
keep the
It's
legacy going, right?
yes.
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 To keep
And
the
I'm
legacy
made of
going.
that stuff. You're made of your grandmother's stuff.
Yeah.
It's a reminder and a marker in your growth in a soul that you go, yeah, I got stuff to do and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
have time. I don't have time
Exactly.
to doubt this magic anymore. I have to
Exactly.
live in this magic and
Yeah.
be brave. And you know what? If Aunt Leroy or Uncle Leroy and Aunt Lorraine or whoever they are, they don't believe, that's fine. That's fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter
It's
because it's the
okay.
truth of who I am.
Yes. Yes. And that's the truth, right? To stand in that power, because that's power, right?
It
That
is
really is
power.
power because
And
you know who you are.
okay, and another thing, Marilyn, my turn to cut you off, but another thing I want to get out of my mouth before we go, they do not work with people who do not believe in them. So the
Yes.
more you
Yes.
believe in them, the
Yep.
more they show up. The
Oh,
more
yeah.
committed you are, the more you know, the more they grow with you. And
Yeah.
that's important to say
Yeah, because they
because you
want
got
us.
to
They
have
want
that
us.
relationship.
Yes, they want us to continue to expand. They want us to share. They want, all of this beautiful, magical, energy to be felt by all, not just some, but by all.
Right.
And how
Right.
is that going to happen if you lock it down and you don't share it with others?
Or
So
you doubt
today,
it.
yeah, so today I'm calling out everyone, right? Who's listening and everyone who will be listening, right? And share it. Share your
Listen,
magic,
listen, listen.
right? Listen, Linda, listen.
If you haven't seen the Listen Linda video on YouTube, Google it. It's hilarious. Marilyn and I have been laughing about it. It's a good giggle, and we all need
Yeah.
that while we're stuffing the turkey or basting the whatever, or getting
Yeah.
ready for like doing laundry for the house guests. Whatever you're doing today,
Yeah.
we only have a few minutes left, but it is Thanksgiving, and the biggest thing that I believe comes from Thanksgiving, we've got a very mixed history here in the United States, and we weren't told the truth. But if we can be in that gratitude and, look for the signs of the people that maybe aren't there that are speaking to you in your heart,
Yes.
and be
Coming
in the
together.
gratitude of the love that we do have the power and the ability. We can't change the past, but we can certainly heal it. And
Yeah, and we
it
can
happens
we
in
can
layers.
move in the energy, right? That we are wanting. We can move in
Yes.
that energy, and we always have choice to shift the energy, right? So just look for everything that just makes your heart sing, right? That makes your heart light up. Look for those
Yep.
things. Stop
Yep.
looking for all the things that really don't matter. Someone said something, they hurt me. Somebody did something, it did that. I feel
Yeah.
this. Forget it. Let it go.
Or
Let's
and
just
if you're in the stress of, I got to base this, I got to do this, I got to do that, you've got to find those still moments. Otherwise, you're never going to hear anything coming in because you're
Yeah.
so busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're here and they really want to show up, and they are showing up in your life. The question is, are you going to listen? And sometimes we can say, I wanna,
And to allow.
but We don't allow.
Right.
And so it's
Right.
important to be able to say, I allow, right? I allow myself to be open enough to hear and to feel and to experience what is before me. Because this is important, because a lot of times we just don't do those things, you know?
Yeah.
Because we're in the
Yeah.
energy of want. And when we're in the energy
Do,
of want,
do.
well, we're wanting, so we are not in the energy of receiving. Can we slow
wanting
down
is
and
grabbing.
receive?
Wanting is grabbing. Wanting
Yes.
is grabbing out there, trying to grab things.
Yeah.
Allowing is allowing things to come in, right? And
Yeah.
being in the flow. And we only have one darn minute, you know? So
Okay.
I sure do. I sure do wish everyone out there, whoever is celebrating Thanksgiving,
Right,
that
yes.
you do have a wonderful time with your family, and that, you know, you check yourself before you wreck yourself, and, you know, try and come from that open heart space as much as you can, because I'll tell you, there's a lot of people I miss, and there's a lot of things that I can be very grateful for, because I do miss them.
Put the love
So,
out. Just put the love out. Open your heart light, right? And beam it out. Beam it out into every space.
Peace and blessings, everybody.
Blessings,
Much
love, and
everyone.
light. Bye. See you next time.